from a secret underground bunker somewhere in the Arizona desert, 40 feet below the Earth's surface. Two men, aided by their robotic artificial intelligence, Jennifer,
Jennifer, at your service.
hide from their wives and kids to discuss man stuff with interesting and unusual people. These men are the Bunker Boys. Well, more like Bunker Boy today, as Garth's out on special assignment. Actually, he's not on assignment. He's with family who's in from out of town, and he's playing host and chef. So we let him off the hook this week. But the show must go on, as we say in showbiz. And it will. Today we've got a good one for you. We've lined up an interview with a special guest named Mike from Glendale, Arizona, near Phoenix. And he will have the hair on the back of your neck standing straight up. You will not believe this story, but I think you'll enjoy hearing about it and about what he encountered at his home. And we learn about ghosts, and after doing some deeper investigation, as I've done and Mike has done, we've discovered that ghosts are actually demonic. So ghosts are not good things. You don't want them in your house. So without further ado, we welcome Mike to the show. So, Mike, can you tell us how all this got started for you?
I would have to say it all really began about 8-9 years ago. My sister bought a house next to her a long time. My sister lived in the house for a long time. The lady next door to her lived with her husband. I remember seeing all the time when we were kids going up to those yellows to get off the yards. As time progressed, age progressed, and the gentleman passed. Eventually, she passed too, but she died really violently in the house. She died between the master bedroom and the middle bedroom. I can't remember if she was choking or if she had a stroke, or it's definitely something she didn't want to have happen, and it was something unexpected. So she died in there, and she stayed there for a while before anybody found her. When everything was dusted and settled, the house came up for sale. My sister was wanting to get into the real estate with her husband, so they purchased the house, and they began renting it out after they cleaned it up and fixed it up a little bit. Well, just so happens a group of my friends were all musicians. They ended up renting the house from my sister. My lease had just come up, the room was available. I asked if I could move in. They said, "Yeah, move in." It was a weird house. I'd never really been in there before.
But do you know its history, though?
I didn't know much about the house. I know that it had been there for a long time, just about every house in that area. It's the Melrose District on 4th Avenue in that area. So a lot of those houses have been there for a very, very long time. I mean, my brother and sister now are well into their 50s, and they remember that house when they were kids next door. And my brother-in-law, he lived in the house next door to it. So it's been there for some time. I didn't know the history if that couple had lived there for a long time, if they lived there before I'd known about it. I didn't know anything about that. I was 21. I wanted to party. I wanted to hang out with my friends and play music. I watched ghost shows. I was interested in the paranormal, and I never really thought I would ever experience anything. In high school, we tried capturing stuff on tape recorders, and we spooked ourselves more than half the time that we actually ever got anything. I don't think we ever got anything. My mom talked about Ouija boards when I was a kid. She told me, don't go around those. My sister talked to me about it. We're a Mexican family, so there's a lot of superstition in our family. And my mom's side of the family, there's white witches, brujas, and I've seen them do things like crack eggs over stones to tell you what you're afraid of in your nightmares. Crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
So I trusted her when she said, don't ever mess around with a Ouija board. You're not going to not listen to my mom. We would have friends over on the weekend, and I think it was about the time when the paranormal was really big on TV, and the paranormal activity movies had really brought up a lot in that genre. And they wanted they wanted to get a Ouija board. I didn't want anything to do with it. I was glad I worked at night and I didn't have to deal with this, and I was going to go home and they would be done with it and I could just do what I needed to do.
So is this the other guys that you were living with, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
We all shared a common group of friends, so we always had about the same, maybe 8 to 10 people who would be hanging out consistently and then drizzle out as the night. You know, they would, little by little, they'd all fade out and there'd be like maybe 1 or 2 people left hanging out. Well, I was at work, and they had found a Ouija board. They found and bought a Ouija board, and they brought it home. I got home a little bit later than I wanted to. I took the bus home, and got home, and sure enough, they were all sitting in the living room playing with this Ouija board. And I just shook my head, and I was like, hey, guys, I'm going to bed. Walked into my room and left it alone. Now, you have to know something else about me. My friends, even some of my close friends, they don't know me by Michael. I got a nickname in high school, and it stuck with me forever. I actually was arrested with this nickname, so it's technically my alias. They call me Mahalo. I transferred over from California, and I was a surfer guy. I was really into surfing. I had the, yeah, bro. I used to talk like that a lot. And they thought I looked like a kid from Lilo and Stitch, and they called me Mahalo Mike. So long story short is, my nickname is Mahalo, or to them, Mahalo. They don't know that my name is Michael, let alone what my last name is. They just know me as Mahalo.
Okay.
Almost like a Cher, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, maybe not as famous. So I ignored it, and I went into my room to go to sleep. Now, when I was telling you about the house, when I said it was a weird house, the minute I got to the house, I checked out my room, and it's the middle of summer, and my room is ice cold, colder than every other room in the house. I don't think much of it, you know. I'm just thinking maybe the vent's not bent on my area, maybe the ducts need work, and I just happen to be getting the good side of the AC, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'd have thought.
Yeah, not really worrying about it. The only odd thing is the coat closet was right by my door, so it was my door, and then directly next to it, outside of my room, was the coat closet, which was hot as heck, hot as all heck. It had to be at least maybe 98 degrees in that room at all times. It was the most odd thing. No matter what the AC was on or how cold my room got, that room was always hot. Always hot. It was just the strangest thing to me. At night, when I would sleep in my room, it would sound like there were pants swishing, like someone pacing back and forth. I had a double closet that had 2 doors on each side. The whole wall was my closet. And it sounded like there was pants, like someone in really, really fine, like almost like pantaloon pants. Mm-hmm. Just pacing back and forth, clicking something.
Like
I don't think it was till like the first month that I actually was watching a movie, and someone pulled out a pocket watch and clicked a pocket watch, and it's like that click hit me, and it was like, that's the noise I'm hearing at night. That's the noise I'm hearing. And I just keep thinking, okay, maybe it's you know the ghost of the couple that lived here before, and you know, because they were all, I don't know if this guy had a pocket watch or something. Maybe this is something he did on the regular. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be really bugging me that much. I'm going to ignore it and just leave it alone. It is what it is. Share my space. It's not my space, you know?
Right.
In a sense, I was trying to be respectful because I do know that there's something on the other side, and I've never really experienced a whole lot from it, but I was always on the edge of, yeah, I'd like to experience it, but I'm afraid to experience it. You hear about all these demonic things. I guess that's the most terrifying thing, right?
Right. Well, I'll tell you the way I look at things is I come from the religious aspect. I was raised in a religious home, and, you know, we all backslid a little bit, but by and by I've always come back to believing in Jesus and God, and I think that that's the right way to be.
Well, you say that because that's the way I was raised. I was Catholic. I went to a Catholic school, and in the room where this happened, I kept a rosary that was blessed by the man that baptized me. I kept the rosary in there. That thing was very precious to me. I always kept a picture of Mary that was blessed as well by my door to keep anything bad from entering. This is how it was in my family. I feel like this is how it is in most Mexican families, too. There's such an attachment to the religion. So in my mind, it was that nothing's going to touch me that could hurt me because God is powerful and God will not let that happen to me if my belief is strong in him. I really believed all of that.
Yeah, I think the key here, though, is as long as you don't welcome it into your house or your body, if you do that, then all bets are off.
Yeah, because then you've broken your bet. You've broken your deal, you know?
Exactly.
Because, again, it's not our body, it's all his.
So you were hearing that stopwatch or that pocket watch sound, and that clicked in you.
And I talked to my sister a little bit about it, and she told me the same thing, you know, because at that point she was my landlord as well. I talked to her about it as well, and she was thinking, you know, we'll burn some sage. And I was like, no, let's not. I just want to let you know what's going on. It doesn't seem malevolent. It doesn't seem to be bugging anybody. You know, I didn't tell her about the Ouija board. If I'd have told her about that, she'd have freaked out, went into there, and ruined all the friend stuff. Again, I was 21. I wanted to hang out. I wanted to drink. I wanted to make music with the guys, and you know, try to get the girls, and you know.
Yeah.
That's what my mindset was. So that night that they're playing the Ouija board, I went to bed. This had to be in late September. I know it was after my birthday that this happened, because a lot of us shared birthdays in September. And I think that's what had happened. One of them, they had talked about getting a Ouija board, and one of them had mentioned to a family of the friend, and the family of the friend actually got them the Ouija board. So they got it as almost a birthday present, and they immediately used it at our house. I was never well versed in Ouijas, never researched them, never cared for them. I just always, you know, stay away from them. They're not my deal, you know. But I paid for a third of the house, so I had to respect the fact these people wanted to do it.
Right.
So they wanted to do it, and I stayed in my room. I could not stay in my room. The entire time they were playing, I turned on my TV. I put on some music. No matter what it was I was doing, I was so apprehensive. I could not be in my room. I had to see what was going on out there. I had to be out there. I needed to be out there. That's what it felt like. No matter what I did, I could not stay in my room.
Okay.
So eventually I came out, and I sat on the head of the couch. I sat as far away against the wall from the table they were playing it on, and I just watched them. I watched them. I grabbed a beer, and they were asking, you know, the typical questions. They were being goofy. Oh, who's moving it? Who's doing this or that? Now again, I want to remind you that there's maybe only two people in that group who knew what my name was. One was asleep. The other one was at work. They asked it, do you know anyone here? M-I-C-H. I stopped. I was like, no way it's going to spell it. No way. No way. And they finished it off. Yeah. Everyone was like, well, who's that? I had to pull out my ID card to show everybody. This is my name. This is my name.
Wow.
It got even worse when I dared it to spell my middle name. I don't know why I dared it to, but I did, and it spelled out Aaron. I didn't touch my head, put my hand on it. It was the same three people who had their hands on it, and they were shocked. They were shocked because they were honestly, I think, to themselves and to each other, we're not putting any pressure on the Oculus. Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they weren't putting any pressure. They and I believed them from the look on their eyes and the fact that they hadn't known that was my name.
Right. So you were certainly convinced, and I'm sure by the look on your face, that helped convince them that it was not a trick.
I was absolutely terrified. I asked them to stop playing it. I asked them to say goodbye to it, stop playing it. I left the room, went and grabbed the beer, and sat back down in my room and said a couple of prayers, and, you know, trying to stand firm in the faith, you know.
Right.
Trying to keep the Archangel Michael by my side, the namesake, you know. Oh, gosh, sorry. Whew.
Yeah, it's trick. Now, you're not the first person that I've talked to that's had that experience. I actually talked to someone else that's close to me that told me that that she wasn't in part of it, but she was in the same room because she couldn't avoid it. She was there doing something on her own, and these people walked in and had candles and the Ouija board, and they were asking it questions, and they were spelling things out, and was just freaked out. She said, I am out of here, because it was hitting accurate, you know. And then they asked it one other question. They said, who are you? And it spelled out some ancient Greek name. And then they said, well, where are you? And it said, in hell. And they said, well, why won't this girl come over and participate with us? And it said, and it spelled this all out, this is all being spelled out letter by letter. And it said, because she has too much faith. Now that raised the hair on the back of her neck. And she said, I'm out of here. That's it. I'm done. But I had warned her before that if she ever runs into something like that, to stay away from it. And I said, I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I feel compelled to tell you. And she said, okay. She goes, you're weirding me out. I don't even like to talk about this stuff. But she was grateful because later on it did help her out and she left. So was that the end of the night for the board?
That I know of. I did not want to go back out to that room.
So you just
I couldn't sleep.
Stayed in your room then?
Stayed in my room, and I was literally afraid of the sounds that I would hear.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean,
the pocket watch put fear into me now. It wasn't just a simple old man that died to me anymore. It was every horror movie I'd ever seen, and I loved horror movies. That's the thing is I love this thing, and it's when it happens to you, and you see it and you feel it.
I know when I was a kid, I used to watch every Dracula and Frankenstein movie, every werewolf or mummy or just anything.
They're just so interesting, but you never put yourself in that person's shoes. I mean, you do temporarily for that movie, but you never really sit in those shoes for longer than an hour, 2 hours. You don't live those shoes.
Right. It's not real, so it's it's safe.
And it's harder when it's real.
Oh, no kidding. So that was the beginning of it for you then, right?
Yeah, that was the very beginning. I had thought that they said goodbye, that this was it. They closed the door. They told it to leave. They were done with it. I, again, didn't want to mention anything to my sister. I didn't want her to want to kick anybody out because she's crazy. She would have kicked people out, and it would have been my bad for doing it. And again, I was 21, wanted to party, wanted to hang out.
Right.
I didn't want her to let my mother know because I did not need all my tias coming over with all their eggs and all their stinky stuff I didn't want any of that to happen.
Yeah, to ward off evil spirits, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to live, and I wanted to go away and ignore it, which in every horror movie they do, and that fails. So you think that I'd have figured that out.
Well, I want to let you know something. You don't need ritualistic things to get rid of things. All you need is one name, and that's Jesus.
Yeah.
As long as you have faith in him and you accept that he died for your sin and that you will be with him one day in eternity, just trust in that name and you can turn any demon yourself. You can command it to leave because you're created in God's image. And Jesus is God, whether people like that or not. It doesn't bother me. I know that's the truth. So with that, you don't ever have to fear anything like that. They can bother you a little bit, but you can command them to leave, and they must. You say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to leave. And it has to go. But, don't talk with it. Don't entertain it, because if you start letting it hang around and asking it questions, that's an invite. And if you invite something like that, that's your business. He's out of it. But if you don't want it in your life and you want it gone, you can make it gone.
Yeah, just talk to the devil and he listens.
Well, what was it? There was a movie that talked about the devil and how, most people today, they'll believe in a God, but they don't believe in a devil. And I think it was Kaiser Sose in that movie. I forget what it was called, with Kevin Spacey. And he said the most covert thing the devil has ever done is convince people he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So after that night, did you continue to see and hear things?
Yeah, I would say they intensified.
Yeah, the doorway was opened.
They became more apparent. At this time, we actually came up as a group of friends who lived in the house. We were given 9 dogs, so 9 puppies and a mother dog. An accident had happened down the street to this family who lived in the house, and their pit bulls had went crazy, or something had happened in their house, and unexpected. They'd been breeding these dogs for 30 years. They'd never had a fight like that. And the thing is, the girl who was there that night, she was the one with her hand on the Oculus. She was the one who brought the Ouija board. She's the one who took the Ouija board home. They'd never had an issue with these dogs before. These dogs lived all together, harmony for years and years and years and years. And something happened. They snapped. Two of the dogs snapped, and they attacked all the other dogs viciously. Only one dog was left. Her name was Doja. She went through each litter, and she picked out every puppy that was left alive, and she kept the last puppies alive as long as she could. They weren't allowed to have dogs in that house, turns out, so we took all 9 puppies and the mama dog, which, of course, my sister was angry about. She did not want dogs in that house, let alone pit bulls.
Yeah, when you're looking at it as a rental investment, you don't want your house destroyed by dogs.
Yeah, you don't want that happening.
Right.
So we found homes for the dogs for 7 of the puppies. Scott, my friend who was living with me at the time, kept a puppy, and I kept a puppy. We kept the mama dog around too. She was just a good dog. She was gentle, she was sweet, and she was protective of the house. She was protective of us. And we knew, I wouldn't say we. I think Scott thought everything was a joke about it. You know, it hadn't hit him how it hit me and how it hit everybody else. He worked late night shifts, and he was always on call, so he would get called out when there was an accident. He'd have to go clean up the road, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So he'd hear the story and laugh and like, ha ha, it's so stupid, blah, 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 blah. But I think Scott never needs to worry about it. It's a joke to him. So we got these dogs, and we kept this mama dog who came from the lady who brought the Ouija board. The mama dog kind of let me know when it was here, when it was around. You know what I mean?
They sense it.
It's almost like they see it, then you feel the cold, you know? You notice they notice it, then you feel the cold. And I say he because eventually we did get his name. And things would go missing in the house, completely go missing, and then turn up in the most odd spots. That room got so hot, we had to take all the coats out of there because there was no reason to have them in there anymore. They were just, you couldn't put them on, they were so hot. It was odd. Wow. Everything in the house was so tense. It felt like you could cut to the air. We had to figure out what was going on, so we asked her to bring the Ouija board back over.
Oh, no.
It was probably October right now, middle of October. There's like 4 or 5 of us. We get around, we sit down, put our hands on it. There's maybe nothing for an hour, 2 hours, but we were patient. Eventually, my hand and Des, the girl who brought the Ouija board, and who had the dogs that attacked each other, it shifted on us and went over to the HI. Hi. Scott looked at us and he was like, "You guys did that." No, we didn't. He didn't believe us. We told him to put his hand on it. He put his hand on it, and it said hi again. It took us a while to work up the courage to ask how many spirits were in the house. It replied with 4. Des asked it, "Are any of them bad?" It said just 1. We asked if we were talking to the bad one. It didn't reply. It went over some letters, but there was nothing that spelled anything. It was like gibberish. It would do odd things like FSH or NKP, OUX, like, you know, things that just don't spell anything. Mm-hmm. It would just go over randomly. It made me start thinking maybe it's either messing with us or something else is trying to communicate and it's struggling with it. You know, like maybe something else is keeping it from saying something, or something else is, I couldn't, but it felt like it just wasn't, it was trying to spell things and just couldn't spell them. Maybe, I didn't know. It was just weird how it would, or maybe it was another language. I don't know. We all stopped for a while. We got some pizza, and my dog Bella, she growled at the back room. Now the back room is where we kept all our music instruments. It also led back out into the backyard. So it was like an Arizona room almost. Mm-hmm. You know what an Arizona room is?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it was like an Arizona room. We used it as a band room, and then it led out to the backyard. She growled at the back door, and of course we all got up. You know, that's our music equipment. It's someone breaking into our house, you know. We go and we open the back door. There's no one in the Arizona room. She runs to the back door to the backyard, and she growls. This time with the mama dog and Scott's other little dog. All of them are growling. We open the door, expecting something there, anything, another dog, another person. Nothing at all. Just silence. Absolutely nothing.
Did the dogs go in the room, or would they not go in?
They didn't go into the backyard. We opened the door to the backyard. They went into the room with us when we went into the Arizona room, but they wouldn't go into the backyard.
Wow.
When we opened the door, they wouldn't go into the backyard. The two puppies whimpered, and the mother dog stayed. She stayed with us. Doja stayed right next to us. So Scott and I were standing there. I had a flashlight in my hand, and Scott had a knife in his. We were pretty certain someone was trying to break into our house.
Yeah, you would think.
And there was nothing there, no one there. We searched the backyard. There was no one there. We went back inside, and Scott went in first, and I closed the door behind him, and I locked the door. And as we're exiting the Arizona room, I step up, because there's one step, and I close the door behind me. And as I turn around, something shoved me so hard, it pulled me off my feet and put me face down on the ground. The two dogs, my dog and the Doja, the mama dog, came running and just growling and making the most mean sounds they could make. I got up and I looked around, there was nothing, and everybody was just looking at me.
Like, how clumsy could you be, right?
No. They said that it was like I was lifted and put face down. It's not like I fell.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just saying, but to the observer, they might think you just tripped.
That's just it. They said it didn't look like I tripped. It looked like something pulled my feet out and pushed me down. Because as I was turning and stood around, it's like my feet went out from behind me, they said.
Wow.
It's not like I took a step and I tripped on something.
Did you have any marks on your body or anything, like scratch marks or anything?
On my top of my foot, it was red, and it hurt so much. Like, how can I put it? If someone with a big hand were to grab your hand when you shake their hand, and to be a jerk, they squeeze it, you know? Mm-hmm. That pain is what I felt on the top of my foot, on both of my feet. It was, and I was barefoot. It was such a weird feeling, because I felt to me that I just tripped on a dog or tripped on something, but there was a pressure on my shoulder that made me feel like something pushed me down. So I was confused more than I was scared at that point. I was like, how did that do that? What did I do? Something happened. I'm trying to find a logical situation, a logical answer for it, to ignore the paranormal that was happening around me.
So I hope at that point you thought, this Ouija board stuff is not for me.
Agreed. We buried it in the backyard 3 days later.
Is that what they say to do? I've heard people say they've attempted to burn them, and I've heard other people say don't burn them.
We heard don't burn them, so we didn't burn it. We buried it in the backyard.
Well, you know, God, when he destroys things, he does it by fire, because it cleanses. So I'm wondering if, you know, I don't know what the truth is on that stuff, but what I plan on doing eventually, I'm going to talk to this gentleman he is basically a minister, and he works on the Central Phoenix. He has a nonprofit ministry, and he delivers people from demonic possession, and he talks about it all the time. So he's a real person, a real nice guy, very down to earth, and he used to be on the radio. I would hear him on occasion, but he really knows his stuff. He knows his Bible, and I'm impressed with that. Because with the Bible, it gives you the rules for engagement and how this stuff works.
Everything was fine for a while. It was almost like that worked, you know? That got everything off our shoulders. There was nothing else to have to worry about. Everything was decent. Well, curiosity got the better of them again. And a couple of months later, they dug it up because they wanted to see if it was still there. And guess what? It was. It was still there. A couple of drinks later, they're playing the damn game. I'm at work, and I get a text that said TJ was going to get hurt. I had no idea what that meant. That made no sense to me. I'm folding clothes, that makes no sense to me. I break a call. What do you mean it said TJ was going to get hurt? Scott says, the Ouija board. I was like, I thought that was buried. He said, no, we dug it up. We wanted to see if it was still there. And then we played it again, and it said TJ was going to get hurt. And I was like, well, did he get hurt? TJ got in a car accident. He broke his left arm, and he survived the car accident, but he did get hurt pretty bad.
Wow.
At this time, the activity in my room got way worse.
How so?
At night, I could feel as if someone was breathing on my face, right there on my face, just breathing on my face. My dog wouldn't be in the room with me anymore. She had to be in the living room. She could not be in that room. I would sleep with a sweater and my blanket on because it got so cold. I think I was just stubborn at this point in time. I was angry that it was there. This was mine. I paid for it. Why do I have to acquiesce this,
Right.
This is my room. I have my rosary here. I have my faith, and I guess it just wasn't affirmed enough, I should have got help at that time. I should have told my sister. I should have told my mom. You're stupid when you're young. You think you're invincible.
Yep, everybody is. Everybody thinks they're invincible.
So, essentially, this Ouija board started putting out what it felt like hits. I started saying things that would happen to people, and something similar would happen to them. It mentioned to the group, because I worked night, and one half time when I get home, that's when they would quickly close up the board and put it away. I didn't want it around when I was home, and I asked the guys to respect that, and they did, but that didn't matter. It said to me that I would get hit. And sure enough, I was walking on the street, and I was crossing a parking lot, and I got hit by a car. I was looking up at the sky and didn't even realize what had happened, and they drove off. Just left me there.
How badly were you hurt?
Bad enough where I couldn't walk home. They hit me in my right knee, and they rolled right over me. Surprisingly, scratches and bruises, and I did have to get knee surgery years later, but it's irrelevant. But it did say I was going to get hit, and I was hit.
Some people would say that's self-fulfilling prophecy, that you believed it, so it happened. But
that's true.
I disagree with that. It's not because you believed it that it happened. It happened because you're being attacked and you're being bothered.
Who wants to believe they're going to get hit? And even then, when someone says you're going to get hit, by what?
Right.
By what? You don't know. The biggest hit came when it told us canine backroom fire. It repeated that 4 times. I came home and it repeated it again.
It's weird that it wouldn't say dog. It would say canine. Canine
backroom fire. I just bought a car. It was my first car. I was happy about it. I needed to go down to the DMV to get some paperwork done. And Scott was going to drive me. It was a Saturday. We didn't have work. We were going to get this done, and then we were just going to hang out. We're on our way to the DMV. We're on 19th Avenue in Indian School. My nephew calls me. He says, your house is on fire. Stop being an idiot, and I hung up on him. He calls back. Your house is on fire. The ambulance is here. I told Scott. Scott turned white, and he turned the truck around. We got to the 4th Avenue turn, which is across the street from that QT on 7th Avenue and Indian School. I just kept thinking to myself, please don't let there be a truck. And as we turned, sure enough, there was the truck. My heart sank so much. We pulled up, firemen were coming out of the house. And I asked the fireman, what about the dogs? And he looked me in the eye and said, what dogs? Scott and I ran in the house. The firemen were there. And the first thing the guys told us was, hey, hide your pipes, hide your bongs, and stuff like that. We were stupid. They said the cops are going to blame it on that. That's not where the fire started, because the fire wasn't in our living room. It was in our back room. We got to the back room, and in the washer and dryer room, behind the washer and dryer was Doja. She was stiff as a board, and I tried picking her up, and the fireman pushed me out of the way, and he picked her up. And when he picked her up, underneath her was Bella, my dog, who was also stiff and foam coming out of her mouth. I picked her up and ran her out to the front yard, and then started working on her, giving her CPR. I looked over at the fireman working on Doja, and he stopped, and he looked at me and told me she was gone. The mama dog died, protecting her baby dog.
Wow.
Scott came out of the house, and his puppy Sierra was in his hand, and her mouth was bleeding. From what we understood, from what we learned when we took the dogs to the vet, her lungs had been incinerated by how hot the smoke was. The saddest thing I'd ever seen in my life was her still struggling to look at Scott when they put her down.
That's tough. It's tough when the circumstances aren't crazy like that. And then to have all that happen and to know, it was caused by something evil. That is a tough thing.
Because Bella was underneath Doja, her lungs were pretty much okay. She was massively dehydrated. That fireman brought her back to life on that front lawn. She lost her sister, she lost her mom. We lost all our music equipment. We lost 2 really beautiful animals. And that whole back room was burnt down so much that my brother-in-law had to tear it down, so it just became part of the backyard. When they did their investigation, they were certain it was an electrical fire that maybe one of the dogs had chewed through it. The officer even told us that they couldn't find an exact reason why there was a fire, and that they were leaning towards arson.
But nobody was home.
Exactly.
Wow. That is the most amazing story I've heard probably ever.
Bella still has a cough to this day. She's 11 now. She still has some pretty wicked, I think they're nightmares she has. After the fire had happened and we were allowed back into the house was so dark. And we had big windows, so it didn't matter. The whole house was just so dark. Yeah. Everyone changed. Everyone who was in that house changed. Little by little, everyone started moving out, so there was just Scott and I left. And it got so dark that I think eventually we just kind of gave into it, and we all just started doing the Ouija board every night. My wife, at the time, my girlfriend, Rosie, she was spending the night. We hadn't played the Ouija board with her, but she was spending the night. And I woke up in the middle of the night to her saying, "Help me." And her eyes were open, so bright. And as I sat up and looked at her, are you around anything with cushion right now?
With cushion?
Like a pillow?
No.
Well, if you were, I would say put a pencil on the pillow and then press the pencil into the pillow from the middle. She was being pressed into the bed by this entity.
Yep.
When I put my arm underneath her to pull her out, she weighed, it felt like a ton. I couldn't move her at all. And finally I was able to yank her out. She didn't spend the rest of the night there.
No kidding. I wouldn't either.
The next night I came home. I was very drunk, very upset, very angry. we had a friend over, Abby. He's a Native American. He was training to be a shaman for something. I can't remember exactly. He wasn't my direct friend, but he was a good guy. And he seemed like a very spiritual person. He was very in tune, I would say, with how everything felt, you know? It's like when he was around, it was a little bit lighter. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Like just him being around in general just kind of made everything feel a little bit not as heavy, almost like it wasn't there. I came home very drunk, and he was on my couch. He was watching TV with Scott, and I kicked open my door, and I went off and yelled at my room in the darkness of my room, threatening this thing and yelling at this thing, and don't you ever touch her again, you know, just leave me alone, leave us alone. And Avi was like, what? He was 6'9", 6'8". I'm 5'5". He's a big guy.
No kidding.
Avi came in and he grabbed me by the shoulders, he yanked me out of the room and closed the door and said, "You don't want to be in there right now." And the minute he said that, 3 loud bangs happened. Opened my door. My bed is against the wall. My picture of Mary is ripped, and my rosary is in beads. Sorry. This is a very tough story.
No kidding. I mean, take your time.
I've never been the person to think this kind of thing would ever happen to me. You know what I mean? I very religious family. You hear about these things. Everybody's got ghost stories. Oh, you know, the door closed on me. You only hear about like demonic stuff when you're watching like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters or stuff like that. It doesn't happen to your neighbor, to your cousin, to your friend, to you.
It's always somebody else.
It's always somebody else. It's always so abstract when it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's easier to take if you don't know somebody.
Yeah. So I talked to my mom a little bit. She was with my tias, and she went to the bathroom, and I kind of wanted to buffer my tias before I talked to my mom about the Ouija board. You know, like, I'm going to gauge their reaction, because that'll let me know what my mom's reaction will be. And my mom's one of 10. She's the oldest of 10 children. And they're all pretty close. I was talking to 3 of my tias, and I asked them, you know, hey, I was messing around with the Ouija board. This happened, got them caught up. And they told me a story about when they were young in Mexico, and they were messing with the Ouija board. And something took my mother. It took my mother, it made her violent. It made her speak in Spanish that they couldn't understand. They later found out was Latin. Her voice changed. It took several of their aunts to heal her. And this was all just fanatical and fantastic to me until the Ouija board said, "I've been watching."
I'll tell you something. They're around us all the time, whether we see them or we don't. Whether they interact with you and bother you is whether you open that door or not. And Jesus tells you, don't open the door. I will protect you if you call on my name, and they will run in fear of Jesus Christ's name. So I don't have any, well, I do have some firsthand experience with it. I was in bed one time, and I was being bothered. I didn't even know there was anything around me. I went to bed one night, and I had been up late at night, and then I probably crashed around 2 a.m. And the next thing I know, there's something on my chest. And I wake up, and I'm having a hard time breathing. And what really bothered me was my heart just started racing like I was having a heart attack. I thought, man, this is like anxiety. What is wrong with me? I've never been prone to anxiety attacks, ever. I've never been a nervous person. I've always had my head on straight and knew what I was going to do, you know. And I wake up with this feeling, and I thought, what is this? And then I realized I can't get up. I'm pinned to the bed. It's like I'm frozen. I can't even move my jaw. And I finally mustered the words, "Jesus, help me," between my teeth. I said it out loud. But it was so weak you could hardly hear it. And the more I said it, the stronger it got. And finally, about the fifth or sixth time, I kept saying it, Jesus help me, Jesus help me. And finally it released, and it didn't bother me ever again. And I said right then and there, I thanked the Lord and said, man, this is real stuff. I've never seen anything like this before. Never been around it. I've always been raised in a religious home and always believed in God, but never made him the center of my life, you know what I mean? And to this day, I'm always working toward that. I'm always looking at things differently through the eyes of what God would say if he saw it, and trying to understand his philosophy on things. And the Bible is really the only way we know of to do that. So the secrets are there. And if you're bothered by something like this, and I'm just saying this for anyone listening that might be bothered or know someone who is, there's only one answer that fixes this. And it's not something you do or that you can do ritualistically, because those are temporary solutions. It may just go away because, someone intervened. But if you want it to go away permanently, you have to understand what you're dealing with, and it's not a game. And don't play with tarot cards, Ouija boards, psychics, fortune tellers. All these things are doorways to things that you don't want anything to do with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't...
Lesson learned.
Yeah. And if you haven't had an encounter, or you haven't had a need for God in your life, you're on a collision course with God. It's going to happen. It's either now or later, but you're going to figure out that there's a reason you need this guy, and that he's omnipresent, he's been here forever, long before man, and he created you in his image. And you have the power through him, not you on your own. No incantation can do this. No spell can do this. It's just Jesus. And he will get rid of these things for you.
We talked to it a couple more times before we were finally able to cut the communication.
It's addictive.
Yeah, it really is. Especially when you realize that you're talking with something on the other side and interacting with it. Mm-hmm. You feel like you're different from everyone else. You feel special, more special than everyone else.
Exactly. It plays on your ego.
Yeah, it definitely makes you feel important, and it's so not.
Well, I want to clarify something else, too. When you're speaking with somebody from the quote-unquote other side, and this is what the Bible says. This is not coming from me. This is what the Bible says. It says, you will never speak to the dead, because the dead are never allowed to cross that abyss. All their thoughts, their actions, their sentiments, their feelings, their thoughts and ambitions are all dead with them. They will never cross over back to this life. So if that's true, then who are you speaking with? Think about that.
It's true. It's a pretty neat way to put that.
It's the truth. You're not going to speak to the dead. You're speaking to demonic entities, which are not the dead. They're fallen angels, is what they were. In fact, I would even take this a step further. Fallen angels have certain amount of power, but they're also demonic entities that come from. In Genesis, it talks about the sons of God marrying and laying with the daughters of man. And the daughters of man, when you go back to the original translations, the daughters of man are children of Adam, basically human beings. Whereas the sons of God are those spirits created directly by God, and those are angelic. And what happened was, fallen angels came down and decided they were going to run the show. They came to earth, and they impregnated earth women. We don't know how they did it. We don't know if they took physical form to do it, or if they did it in a petri dish somehow. We're not certain of that. But it happened. And when that happened, and those beings were created and were born, they were superhuman. And that's where you get these stories of Zeus and Jupiter and all these ancient Greek gods that were demigods. They weren't really gods. They were half angelic. So they had very interesting power and strength. And when they died, because God, this was a forbidden act that these angels did, when they died, there was nowhere and no plan for their souls to go. So they're released back to earth, and they're wandering the earth causing problems. And that's what you were encountering.
Well, his name is Charles.
It can be any name. They can tell you anything.
It's true.
They are
That's
liars.
the moniker he chooses to go by.
Yep, and they're deceitful. You can't trust a thing coming out of their mouths or thought process, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So this final encounter, you had one more?
We did have the last one we had was it before.
You still there? Oh, the phone dropped out.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. You know, it's funny. Every time I do mention him, there's usually a technical issue.
Yeah.
Even with my buddy Jeff, when he was talking to me about talking to you, his phone flickered, had some weird, odd glitch, and then wouldn't turn back on for a minute. Very odd thing. The very last encounter we had, the last time I used the Ouija. I don't know if they used it more after I moved out or what happened with it afterwards. But I really don't care what happens with it afterwards. I don't want anything else to do with it.
Good for you.
We were sitting around what felt like our empty living room. Everything was just gone. Everyone was gone. It was sad. It was a very sad feeling, very sad aura. Everything felt so sad. We sat down, we put our hands on it, and we called him out. We said, "Charles, are you there?" Didn't answer. "Charles, are you there?" Didn't answer. We got words, "No, just me." Then we got nothing for a while. And we got a lady named Velma. I assume she's a lady because the name Velma seems like a woman's name. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't.
It is.
Like you said.
It's supposed to be a woman's name.
It's supposed to be, but I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't the name, you know, like you said, they're liars,
Oh, yeah.
They're liars, maybe.
Oh, they are.
Who knows? I'm just giving it a gender.
Right.
She said he won't be here tonight. And when we asked why, she said, "I didn't want him here." And that was it. We'd never had an issue again with Charles at that house. I still decided to move out. I wasn't comfortable there at all anymore. The friendships had been so ripped and so strained. There was just too much in that house to want to live with, you know.
Yeah.
So my dog and I, we moved out. Father Sharp and the man who baptized me and my sister stepped into the house, and after I moved out, and they did the thing. And from what I understand, my sister now lives in that house, and she doesn't have any issues.
Good.
The woman, Velma, who we spoke to, from what my sister told me, that was the middle name of the daughter of the woman who lived there when I was a kid. So the old lady who used to yell at us to get off her yard, Velma was the middle name of her daughter. She had died before her parents, so they had buried her, but she died as an older woman, so
I see.
she had lived a little bit. My sister said she knew her when she was alive, and that she was a really vibrant, spiritual person. That she seemed like a very strong person, you know, both spiritually, individually, just all around. And that she seemed like a difference maker in like the world. She did a lot of like volunteer work, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I always kind of equated it to she came home, you know, and she had enough of this and wanted it done.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then I am grateful for her because I haven't had any huge issues. I do feel the experience has left me a little more open, a little more sensitive to that side.
Oh, yeah, it will.
I feel like it's left my wife and I a little more sensitive to that side. We're more cautious now with that world of things. Definitely makes me appreciate having an animal in the house.
They're supposed to be more sensitive to those things.
I've always wanted to write a book about my dog's crazy haunted life, and that's pretty much it. That's my story, man.
That is quite a story, Mike. And I really appreciate you sharing it with me and the audience, because I think someone will get something out of this. They'll understand that, you know, it's a serious thing. It's not something you play with. And you really have to be careful what you open yourself up to.
And you know what? It wasn't even a fancy old worldly Ouija board. I think they got it at Toys R Us. It glowed in the dark.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep, they were considered toys when I was a kid.
It's not the look of the tool, it's what it does.
Right, and it doesn't matter if it's a piece of paper. If you scatter papers out on the floor and try to predict the future or spell things out, it doesn't have to be a Ouija board. It's just the fact that the spirits use those things to manipulate you. And what happens is they end up you doing their bidding by you listening to what they tell you. And they convince you that you should at some point, based on what happens when they tell you the truth or when they make things happen. So they're nothing to play with. You know, in the Bible, there's an angel that worked for the good side, and I believe he killed 14,000 evil people in one afternoon. So that shows you that some angels, and he was an archangel from my understanding, that angels have that kind of power. Now, not every angel is an archangel, and they're not entrusted with, they're not all entrusted with the same amount of power, or wisdom for that matter. But it's just, you just have to be careful, and by careful, I mean avoid it completely, because it's not worth your life. Leave it alone. It
seems fun. It seems quirky. It seems scary to get jumped, and when things go bump in the night, more than half the time you're going to scare yourself.
Right.
But that 0.1% is enough to leave you different and a little broken.
Well, I'll promise you this: if you play with this stuff, you will get something to happen, and it won't be what you think or want. And you can get it if they attach to you. They can attach to physical objects or rooms and places and things like that. So if you get something that, you could accidentally transmit that to somebody else's house. And worse yet, become possessed. If you're being attacked from the outside, that's one thing. On the inside is a completely different story. And that's not something you want.
Exactly.
So eventually I want to interview this gentleman that turns demons, who's a Christian. And he would be a real fascinating guy to talk to about this, because he's seen it. My father-in-law has seen it, and he was a minister. He's turned demons himself.
I do know that the man who baptized me, Father Sharp, when I was a kid, I know that he did make house calls to certain people's houses before, and he would do things for, because as a kid, you go to Sunday school, and it was a different time,
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, you go to Sunday school, you go to church, and all the kids would know each other, all the families would know each other, and everybody would meet up for donuts, and everybody would know everybody's business, and Father Sharp would be in the middle of it. He was like the center, the anchor for everything, and if there was a spiritual issue, he had no problem. This 101-year-old man had no problem coming to your house and doing battle if he had to.
Amen. Thank God for people like that. And thank God for God and Jesus, because they're the ones that ultimately do the battle. Everyone else is just a conduit, Well, I hate to take your story and run, but I'm up against the time, and I really appreciate this, Mike. It's going to open somebody's eyes, and I think it was worth telling the story.
Thank you, man. I'm glad I could help.
Yep, it's going to be a great help to somebody, I promise you.
Thank you for listening.
Hey, my pleasure. And stay faithful with God in your life, and you won't be bothered anymore.
Oh, I know.
All right, brother. Well, you take care, and again, thank you so much for calling.
No problem, man. You have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.